Ben,
Let's try this again.
we just watched Alien.
We just watched Alien. We're here in the Popstorian mobile,
Oh,
since your car already
okay.
has a name.
Yes. I don't. What is that name?
Xavier.
Xavier. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know the name of your car better than you do.
You do.
What does that say?
Oh, what's the our other car's name's Hutch. 'Cause
Hutch? Like
Starsky and Hutch. Because it's like we bought it after my wife's grandfather passed away from her aunt, and it's a Chevy Impala, so it's like an old man car. So we wanted an old man name. So Hutch.
So Hutch it was.
Hutch it was.
Interesting.
I hope that's not ageist by saying all that. So Ben,
Let's talk about Alien.
let's talk about it now.
Briefly, this is a mini-sode.
This is a
after all.
mini-sode. I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
Why is this one of your most favorite films?
For many reasons, Chris. I do, in my favorites, gravitate towards movies that I like the visuals of, the aesthetics of. And
It does have a distinctive aesthetic.
Ridley Scott has a tremendous sense of visual storytelling. This is a movie that you could watch with the sound off, and you would still understand what's going on. The dialogue helps where it has to, but it's a very strong piece of work visually, and in terms of production design. There's a tremendous production design quality to it.
It is. It's got what's his name? Geiger designing the
Giger.
alien.
Yep, H.R. Giger.
Giger.
He
and,
it's the perfect marriage of artist and subject.
and then it's got Mobius as one of the art
Mobius
designers. I
is
didn't
on
know
it.
until watching it tonight.
Ron Cobb, who's a great designer of sci-fi and fantasy art. Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the screenplay, I'm a big fan of. And also did some of the visual design. He's credited in the rolling credits as a consultant, but he basically was attached to the movie for the whole process.
And I was surprised that there's not a lot of credits either. This is kind of a small crew.
No, well they didn't credit everybody
Okay.
in those days.
That makes more sense to me. All right.
But yeah, it's I love the cast. It has an outstanding cast. It does a great job of. I'm also fascinated with the marrying of high and low art.
Mm-hmm.
So I love movies that take comic book ideas or pulp fiction ideas that are very like, oh, that's a Penny Dreadful, or oh, that's just anything that people say, oh, that's just about.
Right, yeah.
And then they
It's-
take it and they do it with such a degree of perfectionism that it becomes a higher form of art. So I'm very fascinated in that whatever that point is between like fine arts and Da Vinci and Michelangelo and Mozart and Led Zeppelin and
So are you
Banksy.
referring to the fact that the set design is very industrial, but yet there's scenes in the film where they're playing Mozart in the background? Is that kind of what you're
Some of that. But also just the way it's. This is a movie that when they were writing it, the original title was Star Beast. So it's basically Star Jaws. It took two popular movies and fused them.
Right.
So it's basically the sort of movie when they were writing it, they were thinking, oh, we're going to sell this to Roger Corman.
Oh.
Like, we're going to sell it as a cheapie, and it'll just, it'll get made, but we're going to write the best cheapie we possibly can. So that was the approach and the mentality towards this kind of material in 1979, which is hard to think about today because there's been so many big budget monster movies.
Yeah.
But before that, the monster movies, the biggest budget kind of monster movies that were out there were probably things like Jaws or things like It, or It Came from Outer Space, or Them. And some of those movies, it's the giant ants.
I love that movie.
It's a good movie.
Actually, like 1950s sci-fi horror much more so than the '79 Alien movie. Let it be known on record, this was not my favorite movie.
Yeah, so I'm madly in love with this movie. and the cast, the director, the DP, everything about it. But you have watched it for the first time.
This is the first time I watched it all the way through. I remember seeing clips as a kid, and it was scary then. And I confess also on the record that I looked down a lot while watching this movie tonight.
So it was effective.
It was
in what it was trying to
so,
achieve.
talking with you, I can really appreciate elements of this film. It is very suspenseful. I made a comment leaving the theater that this is the most I've ever hurt while sitting and watching a movie. That's because I was clenching my butt so hard. It is very effective at terrifying you. And I think the big part of it is that you don't see the alien most of the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that tension is so high. And that's also one of the reasons why I didn't care for the film as much. And I was telling Ben that it's kind of like really spicy food
Mm-hmm.
that you just want relief sometimes. You just and there's no relief in the film. I think the closest you have is Henry Dean Stanton.
Mm-hmm.
That is his name. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Harry Dean
You're right.
Stanton. Is it Harry or Henry?
Harry.
Harry Dean Stanton. And he's quite humorous in the earlier part of the film.
Uh-huh.
And then he dies. Spoiler alert. Sorry. And
Oh boy.
the film just kind of constantly, it's just this constant state of terror.
Yeah.
And I did not like that feeling. Very
That's,
effective in what it was set out to do, but it's just not the flavor I really want.
Yeah.
You know?
That's fair. To me, and this is somewhat unfair because you made that analogy before we started recording.
That's true.
But I've had time to think of a response.
Okay.
I feel like because it moves at such a glacial pace.
It is very slow.
It is very slow.
Yeah.
By, I think, any standard. That, like, space gives you time to recover from the moments of intensity. In my view. But it's definitely not the same as levity.
I don't feel like it gives you enough time.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing there to break it up. Like there's an attack, and then they meet back at the main office in like the dining room or whatever.
But you still don't really feel safe. You still
Right,
feel
you
pretty
still, like,
unsettled.
Yeah, exactly. And they're still then towards the end they're arguing the last three characters. They're arguing amongst themselves,
Mm-hmm.
or last four characters, I guess. They start arguing amongst themselves. They're like, okay, they're all going to go their separate ways, and they're all going to get picked off one by one. So there's no camaraderie. There's no in an action movie when you face off against the monster, you got like a hero that you can root for,
Mm-hmm.
like the movie Predator. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's just like, okay, I survived. All my buddies are dead, but I survived.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to take the fight to him.
Right.
You never have that moment except in the last 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then it's almost like a letdown because
Yeah.
it's well, spoiler alert, it is a fake out.
Spoiler alert.
Sigourney Weaver rushes in and charging, and then there's no alien. You're like, oh, well, I'm going to get in the pod and escape.
Uh-huh.
And then everything blows up, and you're like, we're safe, but we're not safe. So again, it's just the tension just stays so high
Uh-huh.
so long. You don't have levity. You don't have
You don't have a lot of
A hero.
release.
it's just
That makes sense.
it just keeps building.
I love that about it. But I could definitely see your point and see why that wouldn't be to everybody's taste. I think I like the way that you don't have a clear hero at the beginning. It's very much like they're all freelancers and they're arguing about who's going to get the bonus, and they're just working for a company. They're just doing a job, and they don't necessarily like each other. They like each other enough to like
Not kill each other. Yeah.
get through the voyage. Truckers in space is the phrase that they used when they were developing the film. But I love the way that Sigourney Weaver's... I keep saying Sigourney. It's Sigourney?
It is Sigourney.
I love the way that Sigourney Weaver's character emerges as a hero. That she's not the hero. She didn't want to be the hero. Because that's the way that heroes kind of arise in real life. Is people don't, rush into a burning building because they want to rush into a burning building and they're a hero, and that's, they do that because circumstances force them to.
That's true, but I'm not sure about her character as far as not wanting to be the hero, because she volunteers to go into the Dutch, and then Captain Dallas goes in.
You're right.
She has her hands in really everything. She's the one who gives the order not to let them bring Kane on board. She's like, this is an order, I'm in charge.
Well, that's like a turning point moment for her character. That's a key moment for her, where she like starts to assert herself more, because up to that point she's the same as all the other characters. You know just as little about her as you do as anybody else.
That's true.
And when she takes that stand, it's like a big moment that starts to push her forward. So that's where kind of like the inciting incident, to use the screenplay jargon.
So.
Yeah, it's a very interesting movie, and whether it's your cup of tea or not your cup of tea, it's fine either way. But it's hard to argue with it as like a piece of culture, history.
Definitely a piece of culture. It's been parodied a number of times.
Hilariously.
It has been. I was thinking of parodies on the way out of the theater. Just to kind of bring my levity up.
Yeah, I think part of having that space invites that kind of humorous look at it.
I think it takes itself very seriously, though.
It does take itself very seriously.
And that's why it invites so much parody.
That definitely.
Because it references directly 2001 Space Odyssey, Star Wars, which was very successful, Encounters with the Third Kind. You kind of see maybe a little glimpse of that, too.
They're definitely trying to make a masterpiece with a capital M.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't have that tongue-in-cheek.
There is no tongue-in-cheek. Maybe you can see it a little bit, maybe with the aliens peers at the cat, and you're just like, that's funny. But there's other than that, there's really not.
Yeah.
And it takes itself really seriously.
You could definitely use that.
Which may be one of the reasons why it's so much tension, it just needed a little bit of relief.
Have you seen the film he made after this called Blade Runner?
I have, and it's been a long time, and I don't remember which version I saw, which I know there's a few cuts out there. We should watch it together so that I can
make a
reevaluate
sequel to this episode.
like a Ridley Scott marathon or something.
And then we'll watch one of his movies that nobody likes or remembers from the 90s.
Awesome. What one was that?
I don't know, but he made a bunch.
He did make a bunch.
He made a bunch of movies, and everybody's like, they're not good. And I haven't watched any of them.
To answer your unasked question, I'm not a big fan of Blade Runner either. And it's just kind of funny because I really like Gladiator and like some of his later works, Ridley Scott's later works. And I like noir, and I like sci-fi, and Harrison Ford, and all these things that looked like it would make it great. And I wasn't.
Well, the reason I asked is because that's a very serious movie too.
Yeah. You're like, where's the action adventure in this?
There's basically no action adventure. There's some action, but it's very it's bleak.
It's very bleak. But it takes it. I think it just like takes itself too seriously. Yeah. I think I like that point coming out.
Yeah. I can see that for sure. I feel like movies like that have a place in my heart, and I can still appreciate them, but not everybody can or should, and that's good.
Thank you.
It's good. It's good for different opinions, different takes.
So we kind of mixed reviews.
Mixed reviews on Alien. What do you think about Alien?
Think? Yeah, let us know, and tell us who's right. Who's got the better opinion on this? But let us know what you think of Alien, Blade Runner, and Ridley Scott in general.
Thanks for listening to the Popstorian podcast. Be sure to subscribe. You can find us online at popstorian.com or on Facebook and Twitter. Tune in next time for more of the history of popular culture.